Greetings, everybody. This is a um, news report, and when I look at some of the events uh, that are before us right now, the propaganda, if you will. I mean, because really it is. It's a lot of propaganda, but we can still see through the propaganda and see what's facing us. Now, I know there might be people that might watch this video and watch these videos that don't, that are atheists or whatever, or have some kind of anger or have questions, about the existence of God and how and whatnot. But the thing that you cannot that you cannot take away is actually the prophecies that are in the Word, and they are almost exact. I mean, you start with Egypt. Okay, last year, the beginning of 2011, and you look at Daniel 11. Okay, you also can look at Isaiah chapter 19 about the fall of Egypt. And it seems like it is like to the T, to the letter, what Isaiah chapter 19 said about Egypt. The physical Egypt. There's also a spiritual aspect to that chapter as well. I'm not going to go into that. But and then you look at Daniel chapter 11, when it gives the list of the orders that these nations would fall. And with what happened in 2011, it's going exactly. And it seems like that I do believe that before something major happens with Iran, I believe Syria is going to be the next target. That's just my opinion. From what I'm reading, from the prophetic books of the scriptures that I'm reading, and we can see a lot of heat building up for Syria. So I want to read you a portion of scripture here before I get into the news. The burden against Damascus. Behold, Damascus is taken away from being a city, and it shall be a heap of ruins. The city of Aror are forsaken. Now they are for flocks. They shall lie down, and no one terrifies them. And the fortress shall cease from Ephraim, and the kingdom from Damascus, and the rest of Syria. They shall be as the glory of the sons of Israel, says Yahuwah of hosts. And as shall be in that day, the glory of Jacob shall be made thin, and the fatness of his flesh shall become lean. Now, for the most part, when it talks about that day, it's basically talking about the latter times, the end of times, the end of the age, the final turnaround, I guess, if you will, before the second coming. And it shall be as reaping of the harvest grain, and his arm reaps the ears. And it shall be as he who gathers ears in the valley of the giants. Yet gleaning grapes shall be left in it, as the shaking of an olive tree. 2 or 3 ripe olives in the top of the uppermost branch. 4 or 5 in the fruit tree branches of it, says Yahuwah, the God of hosts. In that day a man shall look to his Maker, and his eyes shall have respect to the Holy One of Israel. Now you can see this is a 2-portion prophecy. Obviously we don't see that happening right now. Okay? We don't see that. Okay, so. But what's clear is 17:1 and 17:2 and 3 and 4, basically. That's the burden of Damascus. Damascus is in Syria, so we have to keep that in mind. Okay? Alright. Now I'm going to take you to the articles here. This is Natural News, and links will be posted below. Financial experts predict plunging stock market, social unrest, bank runs before 2014. Economic collapse is another way, or another type of famine also. Because I mean, face it. Look how many people are on food stamps. So what's going to happen if the food stamps go bye-bye? What's going to happen? I mean, you have to keep that in mind. And I understand that there are people that need those food stamps. And the best thing that you could possibly do with those food stamps is yes, store up food. I don't know how many times people say that. But there are people that are in need of those things, and there's going to come a time when those things are going to be no more. Okay? As optimistic as many mainstream financial pundits appear to be these days about the future of the U.S. and world economies, not everyone has bought into the mindset that the worst has already passed and recovery is on the way. Trends forecaster Gerald Celente and several other financial experts are predicting even worse turmoil ahead, including another stock market crash worse than the last one in 2009. Nationwide bank runs and widespread social unrest all to occur before 2014. In a recent USA Today piece, Harry Dent, author of the book The Great Crash Ahead, Robert Prechter, author of Conquer the Crash, and Celente all shared their opinions on some of what lies ahead for Americans in the next 2 years, despite differences in their advice to investors about how to approach the upcoming collapse. All three experts seem to agree that things do not look pretty, and that people need to be prepared for the worst. 2012 is when many of the long-simmering socio-economic and political trends that we have been forecasting and tracking will climax, wrote Celente in his recent Top Trends newsletter. When the money stops flowing down to the man on the street, the blood starts flowing in the streets. Celente has long been a proponent of buying gold as a hedge against runaway inflation, which is a result of ongoing currency manipulation by the private and illegal Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve, a central bank which serves the interests of private bankers, has utilized fiat currency to manipulate the American money supply and create the many economic booms and busts that have occurred over the years. Think of the black horse. Okay? Think of the black horse of the apocalypse when you're reading this. How FDA and Big Pharma mislead millions into taking dangerous antidepressants. And this is another brainwashing tactic that they use to fool the masses, if you will. The antidepressants, or pharmakia, I mean, if you look up the word sorcery in the New Testament, or witchcraft in the New Testament, it is drugs, pharmakia, or potions. Well, in today's form, at the pharmacy where you get your antidepressant drugs, your painkillers, that's what it is. It's pharmakia. It's witchcraft. It's sorcery. That's what it is. And obviously that stuff is not good for you. Well, when you put this into the frame, this is not good for you. And it's coming out. The antidepressant fraud toothpaste is out of the tube. At least partly. A Harvard Medical School psychologist, Irving Kirsch, who has been studying placebo effects for 3 decades, recently came up with a documented conclusion that pharmaceutical antidepressants don't work. This is big news for many national news readers and writers, but this conclusion had the prescription pad psychiatrists and FDA crying foul, loudly. Why? Kirsch's conclusion was featured in a natural CBS 60 Minutes television report. Even more importantly, Kirsch's conclusion was evidence based on documents obtained using the Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA. Those documents were trial results from drug companies that were not published and presented to the FDA. Drug companies pay the FDA for approving their drugs, but the FDA doesn't do the trials or reports. They simply take from the drug companies, who all do their own trials, and decide which reports to publish and submit. Kirsch discovered that most antidepressant trials showed no proof of efficiency. Those results were simply hidden from view. So if 12 tests were done and only 2 showed any efficiency at all, those 2 would be submitted to the FDA, And the FDA would essentially say, pay your fee and go to market. After analyzing the results of all the tests he was able to procure via FOIA, or Freedom of Information Act, Kirsch concluded that antidepressant drugs had only a placebo effect on patients with mild to moderate depression. In other words, a sugar pill would suffice. You take a sugar pill, you'll be fine. He went public with this conclusion. A limited hangout. CBS did a limited hangout. Is intelligent spook speak for letting out just enough information to appease investigations or grassroots suspicions. But only part of the picture is revealed, not the whole big picture. CBS did not reveal the horrible side effects from antidepressants and psychotropic drugs. They did interview a British medical official who was part of a UK commission that banned antidepressants use on mild to moderately depressed patients. He reasoned that since most moderately depressed patients can be handled by talk therapy and physical exercise, why expose them to the risk of adverse effects? 60 Minutes didn't follow up on that angle. Here in the States, where pharmaceuticals are advertised in newspapers and magazines, radio, and especially TV, I mean, that's basically how they lure you in. I mean, you have to understand that all this TV, radio propaganda with all these drugs, that's all it is feeding your mind. You know, they give you this information and makes it sound oh so good, but yet you won't pay attention to the side effects because you like what the drug does. Okay, and the side effects are actually more dangerous than the effects of the drug. Anyone seen happy actors proclaiming how and an antidepressant changed their lives can almost demand that drug from every primary care physician and usually get it. Even Medscape lists these side effects from SSRI and SNRI antidepressants: abnormal bleeding, hepatitis, headache, hyponatremia, potentially deadly low sodium, toxic epidermal necrolysis, potentially deadly skin death. That was a tough one. Impotence, abnormal sensations, mania, and suicide. These are not your normal mild nausea or mild rash side effects. While some quit those drugs in time, the last few side effects especially have led to a very high rate of suicides and homicides among antidepressant pill poppers. As Heidi Stevenson of Gaia Blog said, can we finally put to rest any claims from psychiatry that what they do is based on evidence, especially the so-called gold standard of placebo-controlled double-blind studies? So, and yes, I have a very strong feeling that this meeting could actually be very interesting on how things will play out in Iran. From Russian Today, March 5th, 33rd degree Freemason Benjamin Netanyahu will be meeting with Barry Soetoro or Barack Obama. I'm not sure if he's a Mason or not. He probably is. But he's one of, I think he's CFR, if I'm not mistaken. But they all go for the same agenda. But to bomb or not to bomb, Obama and Netanyahu meeting will be all about Iran. And it goes on. U.S. President Obama will meet with both American Israel Political Action Committee and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu this week, with Jerusalem and Washington at odds over Iran. However, that issue is likely to be the only one up for discussion. Chances are that is 100% correct. It's a good chance. You know, with all these rumors of war going on, I mean, it's a very high probability. There will be a heavy Israeli presence in Washington this week, which is the week that we are in, and next week, by the way. The 5th is Monday, so that whole week. With U.S. President Barack Obama scheduling conferences with both IPAC leaders and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. Those engagements for Obama will bookend the annual IPAC conference in the U.S. Capitol. But this year's meeting could not have come at more unusual time, as tensions between the two nations are at their worst in decades. Isn't that interesting? And yet they're really close allies. Notwithstanding a strong and consistently controversial alliance, both the U.S. and Israel are currently disputing the issue of Iran and how a rumored nuclear program there could put a weapon of mass destruction in the hands of Tehran. Now, do you understand that history repeats itself? Do you understand that lies repeat itself? You know, what was the whole idea we went into Iraq? To go after Saddam Hussein because weapons of mass destruction, or WMDs, and yet it came out, it was confirmed that there was no weapons of mass destruction, and, you know, the whole thing was a waste. Well, you have the same thing going on with Iran. You've had this nonstop, over and over again, with this whole weapon of nuclear weapon stuff. And you look at us. How many nuclear warheads do we have? 1,500. Oh, and by the way, we were the only ones that used one. Israel has over 300, 400. If Iran is trying to build a nuclear weapon, and I really put that huge quote, if, okay? To me, I think it's just another excuse to start World War III. That's, to me, what it is. If they do, then so what if they want to build one bomb? Then I can also tell you what, if we go after Iran, Iran will retaliate, and we will have retaliation from Iran, and it will be on these, you know, on our shores. It will be here too. Because you got to remember, Iran is real close allies with Russia and China, Syria also. So, I mean, you got Russia saying that an attack on Syria or Iran is the same as an attack on Russia in and of itself. You know, and they said that the consequences would be severe. So, I mean, you got all of this talk going on. And how many people support this war? I'm pretty sure a lot of people out there, I'm pretty sure a lot of citizens, the U.S. support this war. And probably it's the same ones that ended up supporting Iraq, but didn't end up supporting Iraq because they realized it was bad. Now they want to go after Iran, and, you know, well, you know, it's not good. You know, it's not good. Think of the red horse in the apocalypse. And following that is death. So, this article will be posted below for you to read. This is kind of funny, you know, because we got freedom of religion, so why are all these Christians so upset at this? I mean, you know, so Rick Warren builds a bridge to Muslims. Yes, it's wrong. Obviously, it's wrong. I don't agree with it one bit, okay? But here's the thing, okay? The Reverend Rick Warren, pastor of Saddleback Church in Lake Forest and one of America's most influential Christian leaders, has embarked on an effort to heal divisions between evangelical Christians and Muslims by partnering with Southern California mosques and proposing a set of theological principles that includes acknowledging that Christians and Muslims worship the same God. We know that's not true. At least I hope some believers out there know that's not true. See, Muslims deny that Yeshua was Yahweh's son. You know, that Yeshua was the son of God, or Jesus was the son of God. Okay, they deny that fact. Okay, and they basically say that God has no son. He's one God. So they deny the resurrection. All right, and obviously So how can that be the same God? So what Rick Warren is basically saying, since they worship the same God, then basically Rick Warren is denying that Jesus Christ, Yeshua, Messiah, is not the Son of God. Plain and simple. Okay? I mean, tell the truth. You know? So, spoil the party. But, again, look at this. See, this is allowed. Why? Because we have freedom of religion. Okay? And, yes, you know, if you are not a believer in Christ, if you are not a believer in Yahweh, you have a right to choose. Okay? But once you make that choice, you cannot compromise. You know, we are not to have any pagan roots mixed in with us. Okay? We're not allowed that. God is not allowed to have pagan traditions intermingled with people who obey Him and follow Him and worship Him. It is not allowed. Period. So, really, the whole freedom of religion thing is not based on Christianity, or it's not based off of a Christian nation. As a matter of fact, the Pilgrims, the ones who came over here from the oppressed state of the persecution of Rome, from Rome, they came over here to have a free land. And they did not even agree with the forefathers of this nation that founded this nation, that wrote the Declaration of Independence. They didn't want it. They didn't want it. They didn't want no freedom of religion. They didn't want that. Yes, I do like a lot of the Constitution, but there are holes in it. Okay? They have to come to terms with that. There are holes in it, and freedom of religion is another one. You can look over and over again and see what the forefathers actually say about the Bible. And also on top of the fact that, yes, they are 33rd degree Freemasons. And Freemasonry does not change. Okay? You don't go, I mean, when you're at the highest level of Freemason, you're a Luciferian. Period. Bottom line. You don't just, 33rd degree Freemasonry just doesn't go from not being Luciferian to being Luciferian because of the Declaration of Independence and because of freedom of religion. They've always been like that. Okay, you gotta come to terms with that. So, alright, I'm almost done here. Okay. Residents searching for answers to intensifying mystery force shaking North Carolina coast. Big booms and shaking were felt along the North Carolina coast. Earth, I believe, is in travail right now, people. Tuesday, they have some people worried. Now folks are booming with Big Bang theories and what they say causes the mysterious rocking and rolling along the coast. Anything that can shake the houses, not just one or two houses, but a whole neighborhood, and it can be heard from Southport to Bolivia and Sunset Harbor, it has to be something big, said Bolivia resident Eric Miles. Folks across the Cape Fear say the mysterious booms are back, and this time they seem stronger than ever. People say they had different experiences depending on where they were at the time. So there's a video on here. I mean, click on the link. I'll give you the link, and you can watch these videos. There's another video. Chess game. U.S. radar site monitoring Iran operational in Turkey. U.S. boots on the ground. Here we go. U.S. Army's commander in Europe, Lieutenant General Mark Hertling, said in an interview at Montenegro's base, main military airport in its capital, that the U.S. has the forces in place at a radar site in eastern city of Malatya, Turkey. It is the first time a senior U.S. commander has confirmed that the NATO Defense Shield radar, which has caused tensions between Turkey and Iran, has been operational in the past few weeks. I can only speak for the ground-based air defense units, but I will tell you that we make constant coordination with the U.S. Navy and Air Force, and I think we as well on track to conduct missile defense. Hertling said. The U.S. says the missile defense shield is designed to counter the Iranian missile threat. In addition to the radar in Turkey, the defense shield also will contain interceptor missiles stationed in Romania and Poland, 4 ballistic missile defense-capable ships in Spain, and an operational headquarters in Germany. That was from the Turkish press. Russia has upgraded air defenses at a surveillance station in Syria in order to provide Iran with better early warning capability in the event of an Israeli attack on Tehran's nuclear facilities. You know, again, there is no proof that they are building nuclear weapons. And if you're listening to the mainstream hype, the mainstream media, Fox and all that kind of stuff, then you're being lied to. You know, so the Washington Times, quoting from an Israeli security blog called Debka File, said the surveillance at station, which is south of the Syrian capital Damascus, had been capable of monitoring Israeli air traffic as far south as Tel Aviv, as well as northern Jordan and western Iraq. The upgrade, however, gives Russia the capability of monitoring all of Israel and Jordan and extends into northern Saudi Arabia, the report said, adding that Moscow added cutting-edge technology to the surveillance site as well as more manpower. So you got that going on. Israel preparing country for apocalyptic doomsday scenario unveils new advanced bomb shelter. There's another video for you to watch. So there's a lot going on, guys. Now here's this. You know, this is interesting. Pentagon prepares aerial refueling for Israeli planes striking Iran. In a dramatic U-turn to show Israel that Washington is serious about its military option against Iran's nuclear program, Pentagon officials disclosed Thursday, March 1st, that military options being prepared start with providing refueling for Israeli planes and include attacking the pillars of the clerical regime. They include the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps and its elite Quds Force, regular Iranian military bases, and the Ministry of Intelligence and Security. The official spoke on conditions of anonymity, whatever that word is, and Washington's first public reference to possible joint military action with Israel against Iran. Earlier, Israel asked the Obama administration to finally set red lines for Iran's nuclear program and abandon its shifting red lines option, as well as spelling out U.S. military contingencies instead of using the worn-out all options are on the table mantra. Debka reported earlier Thursday in the deep discord marking the U.S.-Israeli approach to the threat of a nuclear Iran, barring last-minute changes. U.S. President Barack Obama and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will still be at profound cross purposes on Iran when they meet at the White House on March the 5th. So, while still airborne, Barack heard White House spokesman Jay Carney further sharpen Obama's current tone. Quoting, "I think we have been clear about this, that any Israeli military action in that region threatens greater instability in the region. Because Iran borders both Afghanistan and Iraq. We have civilian personnel in Iraq. We have military personnel as well as civilians in Afghanistan," Carney added. "But our approach right now is to continue to pursue the diplomatic path that we've taken, combined with very aggressive sanctions." So things are really going to heat up this week for this whole Iran thing. Island off west coast of Scotland shaken by 5 tremors. Oklahoma sees a record year for number of earthquakes, and they're still getting them this year. This is from last year. Regions of Australia hit with record rainfall. Regions of Australia have been hit with the heaviest rainfall seen in 80 years. Sydney Warringaba Dam had reached 93% capacity, and it was expected to spill for the first time in 14 years between 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. last night, flooding the Miriam-Bidgi, Hawkesbury, and Peen rivers. A deluge in central Australia made a string of roads impassable, with the wet weather expected to continue until tomorrow. 32 dogs euthanized in large rabies outbreak in New Mexico. So you got beasts of the field, basically. Dozens of pet dogs around one New Mexico city have had to be euthanized since December because they were exposed to rabid animals and hadn't been vaccinated. The state's health department said on Wednesday, in addition to the 32 dogs that were euthanized, livestock and at least one cat also had to be put down in the Carlsbad area. In an outbreak documented by state health officials in Eddy County, 22 skunks, 1 dog, and 1 fox have tested positive for rabies. State health officials announced in a news release 12 people in the country have received medicine for post-rabies exposure. This is one of the most concentrated outbreaks of rabies that has been seen in New Mexico for decades. So that's kind of interesting. But that's it. That's all I have. It's all the news that I pulled up for you guys in this Megiddo Raising news report. So until next time, truth be told, truth be known, stay safe. Blessings from above, everybody. Blessings. Bye-bye. Truth be told, truth be known.